In this tutorial, I'd like to show you how to move objects over time based on an overlap event. So you'll see here she runs into the tooth, and that causes an overlap event of an animation. But now I'd like to show you overlapping on something that causes that something to move. So let's find a something. I'm going to go into starter content and use the stairs because those are pretty cool. And I'm going to make those a little bit bigger to make sure that she runs into them, since we are in the side scroller and it's a little hard to tell. So that looks fine to me. I'm going to add a blueprint to that. So let's also check our overlap settings. In collision, let's make sure that we can generate overlap events and that we can overlap all dynamic. Let's also go ahead and just set up the collision in here too. So I'll do a box collision. Let's make this a little bit bigger. That's pretty big, but that'll work fine. Compile and save that. And one other thing I'd really like to do before we get started is to set this to movable. That's a great thing to start with if you want an object to be able to move, even before you begin programming. Because if you set up everything correctly, but you forget to change an object from static to movable, it still will not move. So that can be very frustrating. Okay, so first thing, we will jump into this blueprint now, into the event graph. And first, let's do a custom event. Add custom event. So let's call it stairs move. Stairs move event. And the key to getting objects to move over time rather than jumping from one place to another instantaneously is to use a timeline. And we'll call it stairs timeline. So going into the stairs timeline here, we're going to need to create two float tracks. So the first, let's call track 1. And the second, we will just call track 2. You'll see after we create these, those little nodes pop up in our timeline, which is pretty cool. So let's go back to the timeline, and we can shift and left click to get some keyframes in here, and we'll need 2 on both. And you'll see it doesn't really matter where you put them because you can click on them and then adjust their values up here. So this first one in the first track is going to be 0 for time and 0 for value to start off with, and the second one, we'll make it go till 4 seconds, a value of 1. And then of course you can use these arrows to see it a little bit better. And if you control and click on both of these keyframes and then right click on one, you can hit auto here for a nice auto key interpolation, so that's a little bit smoother. And then before we do this float track, let's go back to the event graph here. And we're going to need to create 2 float variables based on where our stairs start and where we want them to end. So let me just double check this to make sure that the stairs are actually in her path. So they need to be pushed back just a little bit. Let's check that out for now and see if she's able to overlap with these. Yeah, she's right in the middle, overlapping pretty good. Okay, so then we can, with this selected, go over to location, copy the location. Then back in the blueprint, create your variable. I'm gonna just call it start. We'll just call it start, that's fine. Change it, oh, I'm sorry, this won't be a float. This will be a vector because it has X, Y, and Z values. I'll make it public, compile it so that you can change the value. Then over here, you can paste that location that you have. So then that should be saved in there. And then we should see where we want this to move to. I think we should deal with the Z axis. So that in Unreal is the up and down one. So let's just move it up here. So now that that location is changed, we can copy that. And then we'll bring that into a vector variable called end. Compile and save. And then we can paste our variable into there, compile and save. And I'm actually going to go back to the start and grab that location so I can set this back to exactly where it was before. Come on. Uh-oh, I broke it. Okay. So we have these variables now. Now what do we do? So now we can go back into the timeline. This first variable should also be 0 for time. And the value should be the start location of what you want to change. So the start location of the Z that we're changing, it starts at -410, it looks like. So I'm going to put that in there. And then clicking on the second one, the time needs to be 4. So when it's at 4, then the value needs to be, looks like -50 over here. Okay, and then to see what's happening, we can do that. And we can see there's that track taken care of. So we have the timeline basically set up. So from the track one, we need to lerp vector. And this is where we will put in our start and our end. So we are doing a linear interpolation between these two locations. From track 2, we need to click make vector. And since we're dealing with the Z, we actually want to plug in the Z here. And then do Alt click to break that X point. And then we need to actually get the actor location. And then if you uncheck context sensitive, maybe sometimes that can help you find what you're looking for. You'll also need to split this struct pin because we're only dealing with the Z here, so we only want to do that. So we've got that happening. Also, very importantly, we need to actually set the actor location. So you'll plug the timeline into set actor location. And then from make vector, that is the new location there. And track 2 needs to go into the Z here. Okay. My apologies. In order to get the actor location, you need to plug in the values that you're not changing here. So then the Z will come from the timeline, like that. So let's go see if this actually works. Oh wait, it's not gonna work because we haven't plugged in anything for the overlap. So we have this function, but we also need to call this function. So let's use event actor begin overlap. So we're in the stairs and we want this to happen when the character overlaps. So we need to cast to that character. Cast to side scroller. BP, that's our character. Get player character. And then let's try calling our function stairs move. No. Okay. Let's see if this works. So on an overlap, over 4 seconds, it slowly moves from our start to end location. Awesome. Now I'm going to go into the timeline and see if I can play around a little bit. So let's see if we add a keyframe here. Let's drag this. Let's drag this up and let's just see how that affects things. Okay, so it kind of slowed it down at the top. That's kind of cool. And now let's see if we add something here, what happens. So that's a lot. We will know quickly if that does something. So it looks like that didn't do anything. And now let's add another keyframe here. Add a little auto interpolation. Let's do something strange like that. See what effect we get there. Very cool, that's what I was looking for, a change in direction. So that's the very basics of how you can move an object over time based on an event happening, but there's obviously much more you can play with here.